great. Oh, yeah, we're recording. Yeah, the Ignite event was great. And on the day and following that, I had a number of people reach out to me with lots of different questions and queries. So obviously, Julia and I, we got together and thought this would be great to kind of go out and do a talk on just the introduction to DBS and then a little bit more about the process and what happens. So I'm now going to share a small presentation with you. So hopefully this will work. Can you see that, Julia?
Not at the moment, no.
Oh, hang on. That's okay. What I'll do, I'll use it on this laptop. Okay. So although we need them to see, sorry, bear with me. It's not sharing. Hang on. I will share. Can you see that?
Yep, perfect. It's not full screen at the moment, but we can see the slides. Yep.
Hang on, bear with me. Sorry.
Don't worry at all, it happens.
Hang on. Here we go. Okay, sorry about this. Right, here we go. Can you now see that?
Perfect. Go for it, ready.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, as I mentioned, the questions I had on the day and following the event were a lot more just kind of around the basics of DBS. Obviously for a lot of organisations, this might be something they've never explored before. It might be something that they're starting to think about or look into, or they may be the other end of the spectrum where, you know, you have done DBS checks, but you may be looking to firm up your processes or completely change your process. So we're just going to start with the basics and go from there, and then talk obviously a little bit about personnel checks. So in terms of the presentation I'm going to run through, we're going to talk about what is safe recruitment. We're going to cover understanding DBS checks as a children's activities provider, because as we kind of uncovered on the day, for a lot of you, it is a little bit of a minefield. And there was many questions around that of what you need to do and, you know, what kind of checks you would need to get. We'll also talk about spent versus unspent, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions. If anybody's here on the live now that has questions, feel free, and Julia hopefully will be able to feed them back. If there is anybody watching this later on in the day, please feel free to ask your questions in the comments, and we'll pick these up for you tomorrow and come back to you. So touching on what a typical recruitment decision will look like. Everyone is working to a different standard. So in regards to Children's Activities Association, this industry itself, we are aware that this is an unregulated industry, which sometimes makes it a little bit difficult for you guys, because, you know, what do I need to do? I know it's unregulated, but to be a safe, you know, operational organisation, we want to make sure children and parents feel safe partaking in the activities that we offer. So from one end of the spectrum, you may have organisations that say, well, it's unregulated, I don't really need to do anything. And they may kind of stay there for some time. But what I've kind of, the vibe that I got on the day and since then is that that's very much the opposite. You know, a lot of the CAA members are wanting to make sure that they have things in place, not just CVs and referencing. They are wanting to go, you know, go the extra mile and look at doing DBS checks, or they're already doing DBS checks and making sure that their process is better. So for example, I've had a lot of questions about the update service. So really trying to enforce and make sure that you're at the opposite end of the spectrum and making sure you have a robust process in place for your recruitment process. So what is safe recruitment? You know, I mentioned then it is kind of making sure you're going the extra mile. It's meaning that as hiring managers, you can make an empowered and informed decision. So safer recruitment is a set of practices to help make sure your staff and volunteers are suitable to work with children and young people. It's a vital part of creating a safe and positive environment and making a commitment to keep children safe from harm. DBS checks are a fundamental part of safer recruitment. And I know this is something from speaking to Jane and other people within the CAA. This is really something important at the moment that they're really trying to promote, making sure that there is a safe environment for children to be a part of in this industry. I've mentioned on a couple of occasions that as a parent myself, for 6 years, I was taking my child to different activities and groups and had absolutely no knowledge whatsoever that this wasn't a regulated industry. So there's an element of uneducatedness there as well from parents. But it being in an unregulated industry, it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't take the responsibility to operate safely. You know, one of the things to remember is that a DBS check is a tool, it's not a test. It's to help you as a hiring manager feel empowered and confident in the recruitment decisions that you are making. A DBS check, what is it? So whilst I know a lot of you had gone through the process of this, there was a show of hands who had seen a DBS check certificate. A DBS check is a search carried out by the Disclosure and Barring Service to establish someone's criminal record history. In short, it's a criminal record check. We here at Personnel Checks, we're a registered body for the DBS, so we're able to offer DBS checks to organisations all over the country and support them in obtaining the checks that they need. There are 3 different levels of DBS checks: basic, standard and enhanced. And of course, each level of DBS check is designed for a different purpose, as each reveals a different amount of criminal record information. The different levels there that I mentioned, the basic, standard and enhanced, an individual has to, in essence, qualify or be eligible to obtain a standard or enhanced certificate. But what we will probably find in this industry, a lot of you will probably require an enhanced, especially if you're in a supervisory role of a child or interacting with children, depending on the activity, like sensory, baby sensory classes, that sort of thing. So what is a basic DBS check? So a basic DBS check is the lowest level of criminal record check carried out by the DBS. These checks show unspent convictions, unspent conditional cautions, and unspent reprimands or warnings. Now, anybody can obtain a basic DBS check, and you can do this yourself. It's really straightforward. So even though I don't work in a regulated industry as such like you guys do, I could easily obtain a basic DBS check and have that, and I do have one actually for working here at Personnel Checks. So this is something that anybody can obtain. But then we go further into the enhanced checks. So an enhanced DBS check, this is the highest level of criminal record check carried out by the DBS. These checks show unspent convictions, spent convictions, spent and unspent cautions and reprimands, final warnings and additional information held by the police, and also adult and child barring lists, which are optional. So I imagine a lot of you would probably opt to want to have the child barring. So which DBS check is right? So in your industry, again, lots of questions around, you know, what check do I need? What check can I have? What am I eligible for? So this does all come down to what is known as eligibility. So job roles need to meet specific criteria to be eligible for certain levels of DBS checks. So just as one example, yesterday I was speaking to a lady who runs a dance school. So she has this dance school that she runs 6 days a week in her own premises, and the children come to her for sessions and dance classes. But she is not in a supervisory nature in that class. The parents do stay and watch the children and observe the session as it takes place. So in that situation, she is actually only eligible for a basic check, but she, you know, was stressed to me, you know, well, I need an enhanced, which I completely understand why she would prefer to have the more in-depth background search to be able to promote the fact that she has got that. But unfortunately, the DBS stipulate, and their eligibility criteria does mean that she would only be able to get a basic, but a basic is still better to have than nothing at all. In most cases, to be eligible for the standard or enhanced DBS check, the role needs to be involved in some kind of regulated activity. For CAA members, the most common types of regulated activity are defined below. So any form of teaching, training or instruction of children, any form of care or supervision of children, any form of advice or guidance provided wholly or mainly for children if the advice or guidance relates to the physical, emotional or educational well-being. So how long does a DBS check take? There is no exact science about this. We get questions about this all the time. We get calls every day from different industries asking, how long will it take? But all DBS applications are subject to the processing time of the DBS. So on average, basic DBS checks take around 1 to 2 days. Standard checks take 2 to 5 days. Enhanced DBS checks take 10 to 14 days. Something to be mindful of is, as it mentions there, many organisations will try and sell you a fast track service, but that is actually just a marketing tool. You can't fast track the DBS check. What they're trying to potentially promote, but not without telling you, is that they fast track your application. So for example here, if we have a completed application that's been verified, their identification has been verified, we will countersign and process it at 4 o'clock, so the same day if an application was done. So in terms of fast track, that's not with the DBS, it's with the individual organisation itself. So always just be mindful of that, because sometimes we'll get calls of organisations where they'll say, I've applied for a DBS check through a different organisation, they told me it was going to take 24 hours and I've not received it. And that's because the 24 hours is with the organisation, not with the DBS. Spent versus unspent. So all of the offences that can appear on a DBS check have associated rehabilitation periods. Within this period, criminal information is referred to as unspent. After the rehabilitation period has been fulfilled, it becomes spent. This is why there are strict rules around who can have enhanced or standard DBS checks, as they always show an individual's entire criminal history, spent or unspent. So obviously an enhanced is a much deeper dive into that person's background and their criminal record. So there's a lot more that's looked into on that check than there is on a basic. So DBS checks, myth busting. So there are, it's a bit of a minefield in regards to DBS. We get lots of questions where people have an understanding or impression around DBS checks. And sometimes the things that people ask us are just myths. So for example, one that I get asked a lot is, what is the time frame for a DBS check to expire? There seems to be an unwritten rule at the moment of the 3 years, but that actually isn't the case. It's up to each individual's organisation and what they feel is appropriate for them, because once the certificate goes to print, in essence, it's expired straight away. So that's where things like the update service are a great tool, and it just depends on what you feel is appropriate for you as an organisation and your staff. So another common myth that we have is that anyone can have any level of DBS check. So we get calls all the time where people go, oh, I need an enhanced, and we'll try and confirm their eligibility. Oh, what is it you're doing? And they'll say, oh, I'm working in Tesco, or I'm a painter or decorator, I need an enhanced. But unfortunately, because that's not a regulated role, they're not looking after a vulnerable person or a child, they can't have that. But at the same time, we do empathise with them that they are wanting that to be able to promote the fact that they have gone the extra mile and obtained an enhanced check to show that they are safe to be operating in the role that they are doing. So we do have people here that guide people and help educate people on what level of check that they would need, and we then help them to obtain it. Number 2, anyone can order a DBS check on anyone else. Not quite. When it comes to an enhanced check, you cannot basically start your own application yourself for an enhanced check. And probably the most amount of calls we get about this is from your industry. We'll get a lot of people that are operating sports clubs, dance schools, where they're self-employed or just working on their own, but they may be having to go into a school to do a session and they require an enhanced check, and they've been asked to get that from the school. But unfortunately, because you cannot be deemed to make a safe recruitment decision on yourself, it's not possible, as stipulated by the DBS, to obtain that check for yourself. So, and basic checks you can obviously do on yourself. So that's a completely separate process and much more straightforward. But when it comes to an enhanced check, you have to have somebody that in essence ignites the application process for you, that is deemed to be making a recruitment decision on you. So I couldn't just maybe ask my friend to do it because they've got nothing to do with the business. You also can't have a family member. So say if I opened up a dance school tomorrow and had my mum that I wanted her to do that, I wouldn't be able to do that either. So the rules around enhanced checks can be quite sometimes difficult, but again, we are we're here to support in that, and we try to advise people on the best way to approach in getting an enhanced certificate if they really need that once we've confirmed their eligibility. Number 3, DBS checks are a pass or fail test. Again, that's incorrect. I've said it previously. I said it in the Ignite session that it's a tool, not a test. We're not asking you guys to test your staff or deep dive into them to try and catch them out. When you're recruiting people, it's a tool for you to be able to sit back and look at everything you have around that individual to make an informed, safe recruitment decision. To touch on the next point, because there may be somebody that you've got in front of you that is a fantastic candidate, but there's maybe something on their record that means that they have done something in the past, but it's completely unrelated to the role that they would be undertaking and not putting anyone in danger. It might be that they stole a cycle bike or something like that that's completely unrelated. So it's for you to then sit back and make the decision, especially if you had references and they were glowing references and they had a really good background on their CV. The DBS check just helps you sit back and decide, could this person do this job safely and well? So yeah, it's always a good opportunity to have good open conversation and communication with people that you recruit. There is also, we had a situation recently where somebody contacted us and they'd been an exam adjudicator. So they go into schools and they spend time when children are undertaking exams. And he was heartbroken because he'd had a driving offence completely unrelated to anything around what he was going to be doing. Saying, how am I going to get a job now because I'm not going to be able to, because this will show up on my enhanced check. So it was kind of to also help him understand that from that side, from him as an employee, it's not a test. If you have open communication around what's potentially going to appear on your enhanced certificate, there's no saying that the employer may just turn that down and say that you're unfit to do the job, especially when it's unrelated. Sorry. So it's always good to have that conversation with them, and also bear in mind that it is actually unlawful to potentially discriminate against somebody because of something that might appear on somebody's DBS check. So you do need to kind of take time to consider what you're presented with when you have all the information and facts. And number 5, DBS checks are only for regulated industries. And as we know, that isn't the case. I've mentioned basic checks, they can be for anybody, no matter what role you're doing. The enhanced checks, obviously, we're talking now to an industry that is unregulated, but a lot of you are wanting to move forward and make your processes more robust and obtain enhanced checks. And that is absolutely fine and really the right thing to do. I now have a short video that hopefully it will work, and this is just to show you a little bit about the process that someone would undertake going through the application with personnel checks. Okay, sorry. What am I doing? Why is it so confusing? Sorry, we're just trying to turn the video off.
You think
This one. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, James. Okay. Yeah, live tech support from James there. But after that video, so just to explain that was to show you the process for an applicant, employee, or as we call them, a subject, of the process that they go through once an application has been ignited for them to apply for an enhanced check. And you also saw the process there for online ID verification, which is a tool that we recently launched, as it takes the responsibility and for some the pressure of having to verify somebody's identification. We've had it on a few situations where we may have a franchise, say in the Northwest. In fact, I do have one, and he's a football soccer school, and he has a franchise down in Cornwall. So for some of the employees there, he's not met them. So to go through the online identification verification process has been fantastic for him, because it takes the responsibility out of his hands, but it's also a deep background check for those staff that's done electronically, and it does a lot more checks on somebody's identification that aren't humanly possible, such as, you know, is somebody potentially using a deceased person's name, that kind of thing. So it's a really great tool to also have, again, adding on to the robust measures that you might want to put in place alongside the DBS checks. So on that note, Julia, do we have any questions at this point, or we can catch up later if there were any online?
Yeah, we do. Karen Gibb, who's the franchisor from My Marvels, is watching and said, "This is really interesting. Thank you." She asked, "Does personnel checks cater for all parts of the UK? Is it only England and Wales who have the optional yearly update service?"
No. Oh, sorry. For the update service, yes. But if you were referring to DBSs, we do cover the whole of the UK. We've got them all, Scotland, Wales, and obviously here. But yeah, in regards to the update service, unfortunately, that is just England and Wales.
Okay, brilliant. There's no other questions at the moment, but like you said, we'll both be keeping an eye on the comments, won't we? And
absolutely, yeah. And we can keep an eye on the comments, and then if we see any as and when, we'll absolutely jump on there and answer them. And if anybody reaches out to you, Julia, personally, feel free to pass them on, and we'll be happy to help.
Brilliant. And Hayley, you kindly said that you'd be happy to share the slides.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
we can send those on. That's absolutely fine. And then because if anybody wants the video, we can send that to them as well.
Perfect. So if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out to Hayley, we'll put her details in the comments. So you can email her directly if you'd rather do that than put it in the comments, and drop your email in if you'd like to me to send over the slides to you. But there is an exclusive offer for CA members in regards to your service, isn't there? Would you mind just telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously as a partner of the CAA, which we're just also in talks to kind of cement for this year as well, we do offer discounts for CAA members. Whilst we have that offer, it does differ from organisation to organisation as well, because our services are really tailored to the individual organisation. So say, for example, one person may just want DBS checks, which we offer at a reduced rate for CAA members, but then somebody else may say, well, I want the DBS checks, but I also want to take the online IDV and the update service. So it's kind of it differs for every individual. So if somebody wanted a specific price, depending on what they wanted, if they want to reach out, we can send that to them. We do have a pricing page on our website, but as I say, because there is a discount for CAA members, that's not 100% correct.
So if anyone's interested, there's something you could kind of put together as like a bespoke package and come to some direct cost. So if we put your email in the comments, people's probably best to reach out to you directly.
Yeah, absolutely, because I just wouldn't want to confuse anybody and give the wrong price if there was other additional things that they wanted to add on. But one thing I will mention is that we do not charge any user fees or member fees or onboarding fees. We simply only charge people for the checks and then any additional kind of little things that they want to add on there. So it's purely for the checks that they need.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much, Hayley.
No problem, Julia. Thank you for letting me do this.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and pop your comments and questions in the chat.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.